May of 1976. We traveled to the United States to renew our green cards, during which time Dad decided to furnish a home we had on Northwest 88th Street in Seattle, and my first trip to the Salvation Army. Shortly afterwards, we returned to Tehran. In August of 1976, it was once again time to leave in what would be our final trip out of Iran. To get to the airport, Dad decided to do it up in style. He walked to the main arterial and flagged down 2 Ambaris. Welcome to Storytime with Kumars. My name is Kayo Jijina, and this is my story titled The Ambaris. I hope you enjoy it. The mood was a festive one, with champagne for the adults and Pepsi for brother, sister, and I. Our limousine had arrived on time and was waiting downstairs. The chauffeur knocked on the door and offered to carry our bags down and load it into a second car. Since we had 5 suitcases and twice as many handbags, it would not all fit into the trunk of the limo. We walked down the stairs and got in. Brother and I sat with our backs to the driver and faced Mom and Dad, just like the London taxicabs, only bigger. As we rounded the corner, a police escort was waiting to clear our way to the airport. Running red lights and flying past traffic, nothing could stop us now. We were on our way to America. Dad was happy and smiling. I had never seen him quite so relaxed. "Wake up, boys! Get dressed! It is time to get ready!" Mom sounded the alarm. As my dream faded away, we brushed our teeth, put on our good clothes that were laid out the night before, and got ready. Brother and I were assigned the task of carrying our suitcases down 2 flights of stairs to the staging area. Silently, we lugged the bags so as not to alert the neighbors who might poke their heads out and start asking questions. Everything was hush-hush. We were instructed not to tell anyone we were leaving, not our teachers, not even our friends at school. But that didn't sit well with me. I had to let some of them know. The section of Tehran we lived in was a sea of 3-story apartments, each with a flat roof and dab gray plaster finish over brick. An 8-foot tall wall and steel doors to keep unwelcome guests out. The bags were carefully staged behind the steel door. Dad did not want anyone walking off with our valuables. The night had gone late as I helped with the packing and repacking. Being the tallest in the family, it was my job to use the pull-type spring scale and lift each suitcase, while Dad read off the weight to make sure we stayed under the airline's limits for baggage. The scale looked like one of those used to weigh a marlin with a hook on the end. It was early and the traffic was light. Dad was in one of his irritable moods, the type of mood where it was best to remain silent and do as we were told. Brother and I followed Dad to the end of the street. It would be easier to flag a taxi down on a main arterial than a side street. As the taxis drove by, Dad stuck out his finger and yelled, "Ambari!" A wave of confusion ran through my body as an unmarked vehicle with canvas-covered cargo area drove by without stopping. The realization of what Dad had just done was beginning to sink in. Why did we never discuss these types of things? Went the mind as it tried to make sense of it all. It was true a person could haul more with an Ambari than a taxi. But by the very name, Ambari, it meant a place of storage, a vehicle where one hauled items to the market or to the dump, livestock and vegetable. This was not how I envisioned the family would be leaving for our new life in America. For once, couldn't Dad do something in somewhat of a comfortable manner instead of always trying to cut corners and scrape by? It was not like he didn't have time to plan. Somehow I felt it set the wrong tone for things to come. Dad cursed. Another followed a few minutes behind. Dad stepped out into the street and stuck his finger out, like hailing a cab. The second yell was louder and made sure he was heard. This time the Ambari pulled over. The door pushed open and the negotiations began, following the appropriate greeting of salam. Outside, the black paint showed signs of peeling, and the body of the Ambari had dents in several places where it might have been hit or run into a side of a building. I walked around back. The bed was covered on two sides with a weathered brown canvas tarp, and the back was open. I peeked in and saw white feathers. I took a sniff and recognized the smell of poultry. I figured it might have been recently used to carry cages of livestock to the market. In the last couple of years, more and more Ambaris had taken to carrying mixed load of freight and people. The issue was the government-regulated taxis were in short supply and had begun carrying multiple fares. Most times, the taxis were so jam-packed, the only place to sit felt like someone's lap. With the negotiations over, Brother and I were instructed to get into the first Ambari and guide the driver towards the apartment where Mom and Sister were waiting. Within minutes, a second Ambari appeared with Dad in it. We distributed the luggage between the two. Brother and I got into the first vehicle, while Mom, Dad, and Sister piled into the second.
Under no circumstances do you allow the suitcases to get out of your sight. Stay with the bag, no matter what you do. See you at the airport,
said Dad. I had traveled in taxis before, walked and taken the bus. At the age of 15, I was a little uncomfortable with this arrangement. I imagined all the possible scenarios of what could go wrong. What if we were separated? What if we missed the flight? What if we never saw Mom and Dad again? Just then, the inner voice came to my rescue and reminded me of what could happen if negative thoughts persisted. With negative thoughts, I will attract bad things into my life, I asked. Correct, said the inner voice. You have seen what happens when you start thinking in this manner. What you think comes your way. Best to release it and let it go. Come on, say it 3 times. I knew the routine. I had walked through it many times before. So I began. Everything will be fine and we'll get to the airport safely. Everything will be fine and we'll get to the airport safely. Everything will be fine and we'll get to the airport safely. I repeated the mantra in a low voice, one only I could hear. Later, I turned to Brother. So this is how we leave Iran for America? In the back of an Ambari? Brother looked at me and shrugged his shoulders. I guess. There was some comfort in knowing Brother was there with me. It took about 25 minutes for our drive to the airport. The two Ambaris somehow managed to stay together. We took Amirabad down to Bisharistan, made a right towards the Shayad Monument before arriving at Mehrabad Airport. After arriving, we unloaded the luggage and Brother stayed with it. I walked over to the vehicle Mom and Dad had come down in to see if they needed some help. Everything was gathered in the middle. I wondered if this was our final trip out of Iran or if Dad had something else up his sleeve. So I asked him, and in Dad's famous words he responded with,
"We'll see, son."